Throughout the series, Naruto learns a ton of different techniques and gains an absurd level of power. However, by far and away, his most impressive technique that he is able to learn is not the Rasengan or some variation of a tailed beast bomb. It's instead his talk no jutsu, the ability to truly understand and empathize with your opponent to a degree so high that he's actually able to get them to change their ways. But what if he encountered someone different? Someone unlike anyone he's ever encountered before. Someone that from their very birth, they have been psychologically engineered to behave a certain way. And this psychological manipulation ended up turning them into one of the greatest villains in their verse. Would Naruto be able to empathize with this person? Would he end up fighting them? Or would he simply have a conversation with them that leads them back to the path of light? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, because today we're talking, could Naruto's talk no jutsu work on Homelander? But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, getting into it, Naruto going up against Homelander. However, it is not in the typical fight scenario. Instead, this is going to be someone that Naruto is objectively going to try to save. So for this, we're going to look at two different versions of Homelander. And version one, we're going to take a look at the version of Homelander from The Boys Diabolical. Now, the reason I am doing this with two different versions of Homelander is because I think the conversations would go vastly different between these two different versions, and the other version that we will do of Homelander will be the version that we get during season 4. The reason I am picking this version is because this is when he truly starts to be a complete and utter psychopath and almost totally abandons his hero persona to the public and just starts doing basically whatever he wants. I mean, at the end of season 3, he quite literally murdered someone in front of a whole bunch of people. And because a lot of people praised him for it, he continues to act this type of way. So for the first scenario, Naruto encounters Homelander from The Boys Diabolical, and we are going to insert Naruto in the same position that Black Noir was in when he encountered Homelander after that hostage situation, after Homelander had accidentally killed someone, and Homelander starts to freak out, and he actually ends up killing a lot of the other people there. And I know Black Noir ends up helping Homelander and just offs one of the survivors so that no witnesses remain, and this was his method to ensure that Homelander knew that Black Noir was truly on his side. However, in this scenario, we obviously know that Naruto is not just going to murder someone in cold blood. Killing people is just not what Naruto does. So that being said, in this scenario, when Naruto arrives, he's obviously going to first and foremost take stock of the situation, and he would see Homelander there as the obvious person who just committed these acts, and he would at first be kind of pissed off, and he would ask Homelander, what is going on? What did you just do? And Homelander, like he did in The Boys Diabolical, would freak out at first, and I do believe that he would probably lash out at Naruto, and he would probably try to attack him. However, in this scenario, Homelander is not dealing with Black Noir. He is dealing with Naruto Uzumaki, someone who is far stronger than anyone Homelander has ever seen, someone with strength that far surpasses any level of power that we've seen from Homelander. So if Homelander would start to attack Naruto, this would not go over well for Homelander. All of his attacks would do virtually nothing against Naruto, and this would be something that Homelander would quickly realize. However, as these attacks are happening, I do not believe Naruto would push the offensive. You see, over the course of this fight, I think he'd be able to sense the emotions that Homelander is feeling, and a big emotion that Homelander was feeling in that moment was fear. Fear of the public perception. Fear of what everyone would think of him for failing in that moment. And it's at this moment I do believe that a conversation would happen between Homelander and between Naruto. And Naruto would first and foremost explain why what happened was wrong. However, even above that, he would simply ask Homelander one question. A question that I do not believe anyone has ever truly asked Homelander. And that question is something that Naruto actually asks a lot of his enemies during their battles. And that question is simply, what is your story? Please tell me your story. What happened to you that led you down this path? And it would be at this moment that Homelander, in my opinion, at this point, would tell Naruto. I do not believe there would be a scenario in which he would lash out. He might be a little bit shocked that someone is actually asking that question. However, once that shock wears off, Naruto would probably once again state that he cares about what happened to Homelander, that he wants to understand what drove Homelander to this point. And he might even acknowledge the fact that all of this could have been an accident, that Homelander might not have been taught properly to utilize his abilities, and to do that in a safe manner, thus not to hurt innocent civilians. So after this happens, and Homelander actually shares with Naruto what he had gone through as a child, specifically all of the psychological manipulation, the literal torture, him being placed inside of an oven, and them attempting to melt his skin off, Naruto would become so incredibly enraged. And not enraged at Homelander, but enraged at the people who did this to Homelander. And I believe believe in this moment, Naruto would simply reach out his hand and tell Homelander that it's okay, that this isn't truly his fault, and that Naruto is there for him. They can work through this together. He can be welcomed into the Hidden Leaf Village, and together they can go against the people who did this to Homelander, but they can do it in the correct way. You see, Naruto, although he would be incredibly angry in this moment, I don't believe he would just go to Vought, or the hypothetical Vought hidden in the Leaves Village that we would have in this scenario, and just off every single person. I do believe he would go there incredibly angry. However, aside from flexing his power if he needs to, he wouldn't actually show any signs of aggression. At most, he would activate his chakra mode and let everyone around there feel his true power, so that they know this is not someone that they can just bullshit around. And so after this happens, I do believe that Homelander would come around, and he would end up being an ally for Naruto, and he would even be open to training with people like Naruto, or even someone like Jiraiya or Kakashi. And if that happened, he would be a full-fledged member of the Hidden Leaf Village. He would end up being a true hero. He would be taught how to use his insane abilities. Naruto knows above anyone else that great power has an insane amount of responsibility, and it can cause a ton of damage if you don't know how to control it. And so it's your responsibility, if you have that insane power within you, to learn how to control it so that it doesn't hurt other people, so that you can use it to save people rather than being worried that it will be used to harm people on accident. So in this scenario, I think this confrontation ends relatively quickly, and I think a lot of the blame would actually be shifted onto this hypothetical Vought hidden in the leaves rather than being directed towards just Homelander. And I think people like Tsunade, Kakashi, and Jiraiya would also support this. They would back the fact that this is not Homelander's fault, that he was a victim of extreme circumstances, that he was truly someone that was just manipulated and tortured from basically birth. And so the real villains would be Vought in the end. However, what would happen if Naruto encountered Homelander at an even later time? That later time being during season 4, when Homelander truly starts to fly off the deep end. Well, first and foremost, when Naruto would go to confront Homelander after he does some incredibly horrible things, I don't think Homelander would have the same shocked reaction and the reaction of fear that he had in The Boys Diabolical. Instead, he would have a very high and mighty mindset. He would look at Naruto as someone beneath him. He would think of himself as almost like a god, as we literally saw in season 5. So if this mere teenager is coming to him, someone who believes they have all-knowing power, and telling him that they are just objectively wrong and doing the wrong things, Homelander would absolutely snap. And it's at this point he would attack Naruto. And his first attack would very likely be his laser vision. However, considering the fact that Naruto has absurd speed, I don't believe Homelander's laser vision would be able to hit Naruto at all, considering the fact that we literally saw that Homelander's laser vision is slower than A-Train, and it does stand to reason that Naruto far surpasses A-Train when it comes to speed, when it comes to reaction speed. So this attack would do virtually nothing to Naruto. It wouldn't even hit him. And even if hypothetically Homelander were to direct any of these attacks towards civilians and Naruto had to get in between the attacks, I also don't think these attacks would do anything. Even if Naruto somehow got caught in these attacks, they would literally hit him and do no damage at all. Homelander's laser vision has not shown the ability to split the moon in half. However, Naruto has shown the ability to get hit with an attack that split the moon clean in half, and he took absolutely no damage. And keep in mind, he also wasn't at full power in this moment. By this point, he had split off part of Kurama to fight somewhere else. So even not operating at 100%, Naruto was able to take this hit with 0 damage at all, and was able to keep fighting. So it's at this point, after this would happen, Naruto would take the fight to Homelander, and he would very quickly be able to defeat him and render Homelander pretty much powerless, to the point where Homelander would either try to run, or he might actually start begging for his life, like we saw him do with Butcher in the finale. However, like I mentioned before, considering the fact that Naruto is faster than A-Train and A-Train is faster than Homelander, it would stand to reason that Homelander would have 0 shot of getting away from Naruto. So if he attempts to do that, he will get caught very quick. And it's at this point, if Homelander starts begging, or if he starts to angrily proclaim that he is above everyone else, Naruto, number one, would still be incredibly pissed off, but he would want to understand why Homelander feels this way. He would want to understand what Homelander had gone through. And keep in mind, one of Naruto's abilities after he unlocked the full power of Kurama was able to connect with people's emotions. He could feel their negative emotions within. And considering the fact that Homelander practically is the walking embodiment of negative emotions, especially by this point, it would stand to reason that Naruto would be able to see a lot of the things that Homelander had been feeling, and a lot of the reasons why he had been feeling that way. And it's in this moment that I do believe that Naruto would start to connect with Homelander. He would start to ask him what he went through when he was a child, and And once Homelander starts to share the different things that he experienced, from being burned in an oven when he was a child just to see if they could simply melt his skin off, to being psychologically engineered to want and desire other people's approval, Naruto would feel incredibly bad for Homelander in this moment. And it's at this point I personally believe that Naruto would start to share his own story with Homelander. How from birth he was ostracized by the village, and how everyone treated him like nothing other than a weapon, nothing other than a nuisance that they didn't want to deal with. All because he had this insane power inside of him. And although he wasn't tortured from birth, instead he was ostracized and left essentially totally alone. Not to mention the fact, unlike Homelander, anytime Naruto would utilize this power, he would become insanely uncontrollable, and for the vast majority of the early parts of Shippuden, anytime he utilized the Nine Tails chakra, he would do an incredible amount of damage to his own body, to the point where there's one time where he is covered in blood after going up to the Four Tails in his Nine Tail cloak mode. And after Naruto starts to share all of this with Homelander, I do believe we would see Homelander start to break down. He would become incredibly emotional. And I think it's at this point he might actually ask Naruto, why didn't he turn against the village? Why isn't he angry with all of them for what they did? Why is he choosing to be the better person in this scenario? And it's at this point he would have a discussion with Naruto about hatred, and his hatred for the world, his hatred towards Vought, and his need for approval. And that's something Naruto can definitely understand. He understands feeling that great deal of hatred, but he also understands wanting people's approval. His main reason for becoming Hokage in the beginning was to be acknowledged and recognized by the whole village, so they'd stop treating him as a useless weapon that needs to be ostracized, essentially giving himself value. And that's a big thing that Homelander always wanted. He wanted to be truly valued and truly loved, something Naruto can definitely relate to. And it's through this that I believe that these two characters would reach a true understanding. And although by this point Homelander would have done incredibly horrible things, I do think there would be a path in which Homelander could get some type of redemption. Now, it would look more similar to something like what Sasuke or Obito would have experienced. I know Obito ended up dying. However, as we saw, Sasuke did end up in prison for a brief time. However, considering the fact that he ended up helping in the Fourth Great Ninja War and also assisted with Kaguya, not to mention the fact that Kakashi was the Hokage and Naruto made a clear case for Sasuke being freed, these were very special circumstances. However, I do believe these circumstances with Homelander would also be treated very similarly. No, they wouldn't be the exact same because you wouldn't have as many reasons to exonerate Homelander, but you would have Naruto right there vying for his freedom. So although I don't think it would happen nearly as quickly as with Sasuke, I do think Homelander would eventually be exonerated. And once this happens, I do believe that he would stand by Naruto's side, and he would want to learn from Naruto, because Naruto would have shown him something that almost no one else had ever shown him. And I think this is actually highlighted in Homelander's character in season 5 when he confronts the legend, and everyone in the audience thinks that Homelander is going to kill the legend. Even the legend himself states that he is going to die. But in this moment, he decides to talk to Homelander like a human. He decides to try to empathize with him and get where he's coming from. And as a result, the legend was allowed to live. So in this scenario, Naruto would be doing essentially the same thing, except to an even higher degree, especially because unlike the legend, Naruto would be able to relate to Homelander on a much more fundamental level. And this is why I do believe that ultimately Naruto would be able to save Homelander at virtually any point of Homelander's life. And he would be able to pull him back from the depths of despair and the depths of hatred, ushering in a new era in which Homelander truly wants to be a hero for all of the right reasons, not just for the accolades or to be recognized, but to truly do good and to truly be better and truly redeem himself once and for all, thanks to one person, that one person being Naruto. So, in my opinion, I do believe that Naruto's Talk no Jutsu would absolutely be able to work on Homelander in both of these scenarios. But I'm interested to hear from all of you. Do you think Naruto would be able to talk down Homelander, or do you think Homelander's hatred would just be too much for Naruto to overcome? And what other characters from other verses do you think Naruto would have a chance to use his special Talk no Jutsu to convince them to change their ways? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.